In late September, two groups of divers arrived at this beautiful Florida spring. One group was highly trained, equipped for the dark, winding caves below. The other, inexperienced and unprepared, ignored the warnings of the experienced divers. What started as a day of exploration soon turned into a desperate fight for survival as the waters grew murky and panic set in. But not everyone would make it out of the cave's deadly grip. What happened deep inside those underwater caverns? Stay with us to uncover the chilling details of this fateful dive. Little River Springs, located in natural North Florida, is one of the most beautiful natural sights in the area. When the water is calm and undisturbed, the smooth, curving flow of the spring as it runs toward the Suwannee River is breathtaking. Under ideal conditions, the water is so clear that it appears almost invisible. Visitors can stand on a limestone shelf near the entrance of the cave, just below the water's surface, and look directly over the cavern without getting more than their knees wet. The spring run, which is about 150 feet long, flows into the Suwannee River, making it a popular destination for various water activities such as swimming, snorkeling, canoeing, and kayaking. However, Little River Springs is especially famous for its underwater cave system, which stretches over 1,200 feet in length. This cave attracts divers from around the world who come to explore its depths. The constant 72-degree water temperature makes it a refreshing spot during the summer and a warm retreat in the cooler months. Surrounded by a 125-acre county park, Little River Springs offers more than just its inviting waters. There are walking trails for nature lovers and opportunities for wildlife viewing, including deer, squirrels, and a variety of birds. The area also provides picnic pavilions, portable restrooms, and a paved parking lot, ensuring that visitors can enjoy the beauty of the springs comfortably. The spring itself is shallow, usually ranging from 2 to 4 feet deep, depending on the water levels of the nearby Suwannee River. Water flows from 2 limestone openings, with the larger one leading to a cavern entrance at a depth of about 15 feet. This cave system extends nearly a quarter of a mile and reaches depths of up to 100 feet. Except during times of high water, or when stirred by swimmers, the water remains crystal clear, displaying a vibrant blue hue near the cave entrance. The bottom of the spring run is made of limestone and wet sand, and the surrounding banks are reinforced with rocks to prevent erosion. Little River Springs offers a unique opportunity to observe the contrast between the clear blue spring water and the dark tea-colored waters of the Suwannee River. With several shallow areas, it's also a family-friendly destination. Accessible picnic areas with grills, overlooks, and paved sidewalks make this a great spot for both relaxation and adventure. Whether you're looking to explore the depths of its cave system or simply enjoy the refreshing waters, Little River Springs has something for everyone. In late September, the calm waters of Little River Springs in Florida became the backdrop for a tragic and preventable accident. On the 22nd of September 1985, 2 groups of divers arrived at the spring that day, each with different levels of experience and preparation. The first group was NSS-certified cave divers, well-trained and equipped for the dangerous challenges of cave diving. The other group, however, was made up of open-water divers who lacked the proper certification, equipment, and training for the perilous dive they were about to undertake. The spring, with its clear, inviting water and complex cave system, attracted divers from around the world. Little River Springs was known for its beauty, but also for the hidden dangers beneath the surface. The cave system stretched over 1,200 feet in length and had been the site of numerous accidents over the years. This wasn't a place for novice divers or those unprepared for the risks that cave diving presented. But the open water divers seemed unaware, or worse, unfazed by the warnings they received. The NSS-certified group had spent hours preparing for their dive. They were experienced explorers, familiar with the dangers that lurked within the underwater caves. Their equipment was in top condition, and they carried multiple lights, guidelines, and backup air supplies. They carefully planned their dive, ensuring they had a clear understanding of the cave layout and the air needed for a safe return. They knew the rule: never use more than 1/3 of your air supply to get into the cave, 1/3 to get out, and keep the final third as a reserve. This rule could mean the difference between life and death in the labyrinth of underwater passages. But on the other hand, the second group of divers seemed far less prepared. While their excitement for diving was clear, they were severely lacking in the knowledge and equipment necessary for cave exploration. 4 divers were trained for open water diving, which is quite different from cave diving, which required specialized training. They only had 1 light per person, no continuous guideline to lead them back out of the cave, and their air supply plan was non-existent. The NSS group, noticing the inadequate preparation of the other divers, tried to warn them. They explained the dangers of entering the caves without the right gear or training, but the warnings fell on deaf ears. The open water divers seemed confident, too confident, and laughed off the concerns of the more experienced group. It was a dangerous combination: excitement, overconfidence, and a lack of preparation. The NSS group completed their dive successfully, following the safety protocols they had trained for. They entered the cave system, explored the beauty of the underwater passages, and made their way back, carefully managing their air and following their guidelines. After the dive, they began decompressing in the shallow waters near the surface. As they rested, they watched the second group of divers enter the water. The 4 open water divers seemed excited, ready to explore the cave despite the earlier warnings. They disappeared beneath the surface, heading into the cave system. For a while, everything seemed fine. The NSS group continued their decompression, assuming that the other group would follow their own instincts and exit the cave safely. After some time, all 4 divers resurfaced. It seemed like their dive had gone smoothly, and they were now back in the safety of the open water. But instead of stopping there, 3 of the 4 decided to re-enter the cave for a second dive. They ignored the fact that they were already low on air. Perhaps they felt invincible after their first dive. Or maybe they were eager to push the limits further. Whatever the reason, they made the fateful decision to go back in. As the 3 divers ventured deeper into the cave, they reached an area known as Table Rock. It was here that the reality of their situation hit them. They were dangerously low on air. Their gauges were reading between 400 and 900 psi, far too little for a safe return to the surface. Panic began to set in. In the underwater darkness, they realized that their poorly thought-out dive had put them all in grave danger. Without a continuous guideline, and with only 1 light per diver, they had no clear path to follow back to safety. In the chaos, the divers made a desperate decision: every man for himself. Instead of sticking together and trying to navigate their way out as a group, they each swam in different directions, hoping to find the exit on their own. One of the divers, disoriented and panicked, swam up into a dome area, thinking it might be a way out. But he was wrong. The dome led nowhere, and in the confusion he became trapped. The other 2 divers managed to make their way to the end of the permanent guideline that led out of the cave. They pushed forward, the air running dangerously low. Meanwhile, one of the NSS divers, still decompressing in just 10 feet of water, noticed something unusual: an enormous silt cloud billowing through the cave system. The cloud had been stirred up by the panicked divers, who were thrashing about in their desperate attempt to escape. The silt made visibility nearly impossible, further complicating their situation. Of the 3 divers who had re-entered the cave, 2 managed to surface. One emerged with no air left in his tank, while the other had a mere 50 psi remaining. They had barely made it out alive. But it wasn't immediately clear that only 2 of the divers had exited. In the confusion of the silt cloud and the panicked retreat, no one knew for sure if all 3 had made it out. The victim group, however, knew that one of their own was still trapped inside. Without hesitation, one of the surviving divers grabbed the 4th man's tank and re-entered the cave to search for his friend. The visibility was almost non-existent, and the air was running low, but he was determined to find the missing diver. After what must have felt like an eternity, he came out of the cave, dragging the lifeless body of the 3rd diver with him. The tragic accident at Little River Springs could have been avoided. The victim group was not equipped for cave diving and had ignored the warnings given to them. They lacked basic safety gear, such as extra lights and a continuous guideline, and they didn't plan their air supply properly. Worse still, they had laughed off the advice of experienced cave divers who knew the risks all too well. Rescue teams arrived quickly after the accident, but it was too late. The 3rd diver had died from the dangers of the cave. His lack of training and equipment, combined with the panic and confusion underwater, had cost him his life. This tragic event served as a reminder of the dangers of cave diving. and the importance of proper training. Cave diving is not the same as open water diving. The risks are far greater, and even the smallest mistake can lead to disaster. In the aftermath, many in the diving community called for stricter regulations around cave diving. Some suggested that cave training should be a mandatory part of a diver's certification, especially in areas like Florida where cave systems are common. Others, like Landis, proposed a no-light rule for open water divers, which would prevent them from entering caves beyond their ability and training. The accident at Little River Springs remains a cautionary tale for divers everywhere. Eagle's Nest is one of the most intimidating caves in the entire United States. Located near the coast of west central Florida, it has been hypnotizing cave divers for years and sadly claimed many of their lives. Like a Bengal tiger, it is both mesmerizingly beautiful and deadly. It is widely regarded as one of the most dangerous cave diving sites, not just in the US, but on the face of the earth. Popularly nicknamed the Mount Everest of cave diving, it is strongly advised that only experienced professionals even consider attempting this site. But amazingly and tragically, as this story will show, even experienced divers can still fall prey to this apex predator of the caving world. Eagle's Nest is actually a sinkhole. Sinkholes are pretty frightening by nature. They are quite literally holes in the earth where the ground simply gave way and collapsed. Sinkholes have several different classifications, and some get created gradually while others collapse all at once. Either way, they often fill with water draining from the surface above, turning into what look like random little swimming holes drilled into various locations around the globe. The hole in the earth known as Eagle's Nest is about an hour's drive north of Tampa, Florida, and only about 1 mile east off the coast of the Gulf of Mexico. A lot of Florida's lakes and caving systems are admired and frequently photographed for their incredibly clear and inviting water. Not so with Eagle's Nest. The surface of this sinkhole is notoriously unattractive. For starters, it's green, and it's usually covered with algae. There are bugs everywhere, mostly the kind that want to suck your blood, and there aren't really any places to sit and put your stuff. The actual sinkhole is surrounded on all sides by a kind of swampy muck that stretches for many yards in every direction. Shrek would feel right at home here. Perhaps worst of all, the water itself is surprisingly murky. Even if you get your legs muddy and stand directly above it, you can't see what's below. In a way, that's a shame, because it turns out what's below is one of the most extraordinary underwater worlds that humans have ever uncovered. Below the surface of this relatively small and swampy body of water is a labyrinth that descends 300 feet below the Earth's surface. The intricate network of pathways extends for over a mile. According to the experts, it's so amazing that it can actually be unsafe. One expert who says this is Sylvester Muller, who is the vice chairman of the National Speleological Society's cave diving section. He says Eagle's Nest is like a Venus flytrap. You get in there and there is so much to see you get distracted, and it gets deep quickly. When Muller says there's lots to see, he's not just talking about the amazing network of underwater caves. He's also talking about the life forms that exist inside them. Because of the narrow passages inside Eagle's Nest and the numerous sections that sit in total darkness all the time, unusual animals live inside Eagle's Nest. One is the cave-adapted crayfish. This bizarre creature is as white as a sheet of paper. You can see through its body well enough to see its internal organs from the outside. Most amazingly, for reasons that scientists can't yet fully explain, they can live for as long as 200 years. Despite the fact that they're stuck living in dark, maze-like caves such as Eagle's Nest where there is barely ever any food around. Speaking of science, another reason Eagle's Nest seduces so many divers is because of the highly unusual organic environment. According to National Geographic, things like bacterial cultures and algal mats found here might be good representations of what life could look like on other planets. The cave is a boon for biologists as well as explorers, although surely there is some overlap between the two. The two things on this planet that we've explored the least, and therefore know the least about, are the world underwater and the world underground. Eagle's Nest is both of these worlds combined, making it one of the most alien environments you can ever visit. Needless to say, the appeal of Eagle's Nest is obvious, and it gets many visitors despite being so dangerous. But since the early 1980s, no less than 10 people have died inside Eagle's Nest. In today's crazy world, where it seems like we hear about death and tragedy on the news every single day, that number may not seem as gigantic as it should. In the context of cave diving, a niche sport by nature, one single cave with a death toll in double digits is insane. It's so out of the ordinary that people living on the west central Florida coast have routinely begged for officials to close Eagle's Den permanently. Those calls grew particularly loud following the event that I'm about to describe. On the afternoon of Sunday, October 16, 2016, 3 divers made the trek out to Eagle's Nest in the hopes of exploring its hidden wonders. The 3 were there for a weekend trip which was supposed to include 3 full days spent diving. They were Chris Rittenmeyer, Patrick Peacock, and Justin Blakely. All 3 were experienced divers, and both Chris Rittenmeyer and Patrick Peacock had even explored Eagle's Nest before. As they wandered under the shade of the pine trees, they would have seen multiple signs in regard to the sinkhole that was just around the corner. One in particular would have definitely stood out, as I'm sure it does to most people who visit Eagle's Nest. It is a large white sign that says in bold red letters, "Attention Scuba Divers." The sign is a reminder that all divers are strictly required to have completed a registration process before entering Eagle's Nest. In order to register, they must be scuba certified and they must have the registration papers with them when they visit the area. This is a bold red indication that what you're about to do requires experience and qualification. It would not be the last warning sign the 3 men would see, nor the most disconcerting. Making their way past the sign, the 3 men would have soon come upon a small boardwalk. The boardwalk bridges the way over tall grass and muddy ground until it opens up to the treeless area where the sinkhole sits. Being the 2 in the group who had been here before, Rittenmeyer and Peacock probably went in first. They were intending to explore deeper areas of the cave than Justin Blakely, who was content to explore closer to the surface. There are 3 different tunnels you can take, fanning out somewhat evenly from the central spot where the cave entrance lies. Found along these tunnels are more than 6 dozen rooms, but the biggest and most famous is surely the super room. It's likely that both Rittenmeyer and Peacock would have wanted to explore this portion, meaning they would have had to travel down the upstream tunnel. There is also a downstream tunnel with more rooms in it. These include the Half Moon Room, Jim's Room, and the Room of Dreams. All 3 of these are at least 200 or more feet below. There's a stretch of the cave between Jim's room and another spot called the Pit, where the tunnel dips to 300 feet. It would have areas in the cave, such as these that Peacock and Rittenmeyer were exploring together, while their other friend Justin Blakely explored higher up. The group reportedly entered the water at around 2 p.m. They had agreed on a meeting point to come back to exactly 1 hour later. As they descended together, they would have quickly run into a sight that is impossible to ignore. A large white sign with the image of the Grim Reaper on it. It seems like there are more than one of these signs in underwater caves around Florida, but it seems entirely possible that Eagle's Nest was the first cave to get one, and the cave that inspired the disturbing sign in the first place. It says, "Stop, prevent your death, go no farther." It then lists some facts about the dangers of cave diving, including the fact that more than 300 divers, including open water scuba instructors, have died in caves just like this one. At the bottom, it says simply and hauntingly, "There is nothing in this cave worth dying for." After exploring the upper regions of the cave, Blakely returned to the meeting point on time. He discovered that he was the only one there. Initially, this probably wasn't too surprising, given that he had been exploring much closer to the surface than Rittenmeyer and Peacock, but after some minutes had gone by, he started to get worried. I'm not sure precisely where the meeting point was, but after a half hour, Blakely returned to it. Once again, he was the only one there. There was no trace of Patrick Peacock or Chris Rittenmeyer. News reports make it sound as though Justin Blakely continued to check the meeting point, then check again and again until about 6 p.m., 3 hours after the 3 friends were supposed to rejoin each other. At 6 p.m., he dialed 911. As you might imagine, Eagle's Nest is one of the worst places to try and look for missing divers. Not only is it incredibly deep, but it is also winding and narrow. It's almost like looking for someone inside the intestinal tract of the earth. Despite rescue crews running to the scene and beginning the search immediately, they looked all through the evening with no luck. The amount of time that had passed at this point sadly left little room for hope. It had been hours since they first descended, and scuba air tanks usually don't last much longer than 1 hour. At the extreme depth of the rooms in Eagle's Nest, that time would likely be shortened even further. The grim search continued until the following morning on October 17th. Given the circumstances, this must have felt like half an eternity. But finally, rescue made the tragic discovery everyone was dreading. The dead bodies of Chris Rittenmeyer and Patrick Peacock were found relatively close to each other. According to the sheriff's office in the surrounding county of Hernando, the two divers were both found in a very dangerous and complex area of the cave system. Rescue divers estimated that Chris and Patrick were trapped roughly 260 feet below the surface. To put this into perspective, that is only a few stories less than the full height of the Statue of Liberty. And they didn't have a straight shot to the top either. They were buried under a notoriously circuitous network of dark, narrow caves. This was a horrific, horrific way to die. The story received nationwide media attention, even being covered on CBS Morning News. Like many stories about caving exploration gone wrong, most of the focus was put on the dangers of the cave and the tragic outcome, and as a result, it seems like there is no mystery. Dangerous cave, deadly accident. This seems like an especially complete explanation in the case of Eagle's Den, where it had already happened numerous times before. Clearly, something went really wrong with both Chris's and Patrick's dives. But interestingly, on the National Speleological Society's online database, the incident type is listed as unknown. Throughout various news articles, TV segments, and other sources, I did not find a definitive answer as to what actually went wrong. In a cave as challenging as Eagle's Nest, there is quite a lot that could have gone wrong. Perhaps they didn't reserve the amount of gas they needed. Maybe they accidentally knocked around silt or sediment on the floor or walls that obscured their vision. One strong vulnerability in a winding cave like Eagle's Nest is making some kind of a mistake with the guideline they're running. It could be some combination of these factors, or it could be something else. Whatever it was, it trapped Chris Rittenmeyer and Patrick Peacock 260 feet down inside Eagle's Nest and ensured they never saw the light of day again. Do you think Eagle's Nest should be closed to the public? Post your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to like the video and subscribe for more caving stories in the near future. That's all for now. I'll see you next time.